Sorry about doing that April Fool's video. I honestly hate April Fools. Most YouTubers just use it as an excuse to crap out some completely unentertaining troll. And maybe you could argue that's what I did, but I at least tried to make it as fun as possible. Most of you at least seem to enjoy it. Honestly, it wasn't even going to happen till Berto Boy reminded me at the literal day before I had to make the video that I had promised to make an April Fool's review of the Angry Birds Thundercracker a year ago. And I'm a man of my word, my stupid word. So I just hope that video wasn't a bummer for anyone, like 99% of all April Fool's videos tend to be a bummer for me. Anyways, this is another figure I picked up off Amazon because I got sick of searching every store and finding nothing, wasting tons of gas in the process, and I paid an extra $2 for this privilege. Only to go to the store on Thursday for floss and toothpaste, and what do I find there? Oh, you bet it was a copy of this figure. Oh, I'm cursed! I guess either way, I finally get to review what I'm pretty sure is going to be the last weaponizer ever. War for Cybertron is over. Kingdom is over. These figures never really seem to sell all that well, and I can't blame people for not being down with this gimmick, even if I eventually found it fun myself, so I doubt Hasbro will really go for this again. Sad as that is to say, but at least they can end this particular subgroup of parts swarmers with an absolute slammer of a figure. It's Kingdom Slammer. This one's a bit strange, folks. See, Slammer has never been a dude before. He's only ever been a tank, like an actual regular tiny tank destroyer with an AI. So, when they made this guy, they had to figure out something to turn him into. Not that much different from just coming up with a new character, I suppose. But interestingly, they seem to have been aiming for some kind of auto-trooper with this mold. Like, not all the way, at best it's only reminiscent of it, but those two cylinders on his face can't be coincidental. Even though, besides that, the head looks nothing like the one from the Goon Squad, outside of the blue visor that's not even the same shape. So really, this guy is mostly a design made from whole cloth. And a solidly badass one, though the inwards elbow spike does kind of kneecap that. Those just have to be the biggest pain in the ass imaginable. Just think about constantly getting yourself in the ribs with a soda can you have taped to the inside of your elbow. It kind of interferes with his articulation in a really annoying way. But that's a minor problem, because Slammer, more than any other weaponizer, is just made of guns. Or weapons, I guess. As most of the other weaponizers are dudes with guns on their arms that break down into what could charitably be described as weapons, I guess, if you really use your imagination. Meanwhile, Slammer is rolling up in bot mode, with miniguns and cannons on his toes, a huge fuck-off cannon built into his arm like a kind of gruesome body mod, rocket pods like so much trypophobia in both his shoulders and shins, and a backpack made out of chainsaws. I think Slammer here is just about the only weaponizer who can wield himself without being forced to hop around on one foot. So this guy is armed to the teeth, and I feel like he and Warpath would either be best friends or worst enemies. However, this guy has kind of a conflicted look. Like, he seems pretty hardcore with all the weapons, and so long as he's got his backpack on, that illusion holds. But it is kind of just an illusion, since when that's gone, you find out he's a gangly mess with twiggy thighs and skinny jeans tucked into Uggs. Real talk. Girls, ladies, women, please stop pretending Uggs are cute. If you want to wear them because they are incredibly comfortable, 100%, just go for it. But they are hideous, so stop pretending it's fashionable. I will respect you more if you stop trying to lie to everyone around you and just admit that they're comfortable, and that's all the reason you need to wear them. This has been stupid rants you didn't sign up for in this Transformers review with PerspectiveEnd. Also, Peg Fist. Never a strong look. How is the cannon not 5mm compatible? Lastly, the build, at least on mine, kind of sucks. Everything is just a bit too loose, especially his spine. And his arms love to fall off at the slightest provocation. Also, his chest. Gaping hole in the center when the backpack's not covering it up. Head reminds me a lot of Tailgate. Honestly, this could just be him in a muscle suit. There's not much to say here. It's a faceless mask with a big visor of a non-character and an excessively square head. Going by the size of the faceplate, this guy has a tiny mouth, and that visor just looks scared and innocent. Normally, I'm one to say that a Cybertronian always looks cooler with a faceplate, but honestly, this one is so dweeby, I'd have to see what he looks like under it to make that call for sure. And what's with these cylinders? Are these just beers screwed into his face like the Cybertronian equivalent of one of those booze helmets? So the look of this is kind of a mixed bag. Some of it is really cool. A lot of it is really dorky. From the elbow sodas to the face spears to the fist pegs to the Uggs and nuthugger jeans to the waspish waist, this is a goofy, gangly boy. But he's also built out of armor that's built out of guns. And he's got a backpack that the Doomslayer and Space Marines would fight over, which I have no other words for other than fucking sick. So yeah, this is a mixed bag on appearance. Now this guy didn't come with anything, because he is everything. Forearms come off and look at least a little bit like a gun, with whichever one gets the cannon looking a lot more like one. You can also use them to make the stupid Siege shoes, and if you combine them with a backpack, then you get the ultimate shoes! Heels this big and no figure can ever fall over. Shoulders come off and are meant to be rocket pods, legs come off and form awesome looking missile racks that are basically useless because for some reason they didn't include any pegs on the thighs. So any combination you do is going to be a workaround that didn't have to be this compromised. Backpack can turn into a pair of chain swords, or a pair of skis, and there's an adapter piece that lets them be either one much bigger chain sword, that's lame, or you can use yet another adapter piece and turn this into a true chainsaw. Where's BFG Division when you need it? That's fucking sick, and the treads are easily the coolest thing he becomes. Unfortunately, they are basically just a backpack that's not integral to the figure. And then the torso doesn't really become anything. It's just yet another adapter piece. And not one shred of this guy could be called armor. So the weaponizing here is both the dopest it's ever been and the worst, because of just moronically glaring oversights like not including any pegs on some of the most important parts that desperately needed them, and an over-reliance on adapters to make certain things function, as well as a severe lack of much of this thing doing anything. Even if Ractonite didn't turn into anything useful, it at least had the pegs to mount onto other figures, so a lot of what's here actually feels kind of useless, or you have to get really creative to have work. And every time I think I almost have something figured out, the clearances just aren't right for it. What is good here is awesome. It's just so hard to get so much of it to work, and a lot of it just doesn't do anything. Posability, on the other hand, is kind of fantastic. Head has way more upwards range than normal, even without transforming it. Arms pull slightly less than a 90 out to the side, otherwise you pop them off. But if you swap the shoulders, then you can get more. Elbows pull slightly more than a 90, no wrists, ab crunch both forward and back, extra unimpeded hips if you remember to remove the backpack, maximum knees, and extreme ankle tilts. So, not a lot of this guy is super advanced, but literally every joint this guy has is above average, as long as you swap the shoulders when needed, and he's got a full range of crunches at the abs. So essentially, this weirdly enough kind of has to wind up as one of the most posable figures of the whole WFC, at least on paper. In person, the build finds him a little more restricted than that would suggest. Transformation on this guy is quite possibly the worst of all the weaponizers. The other weaponizers require you to take them most of the way apart, but at least some components can stay together. And yeah, here the forearms stay attached to the shoulder, the backpack works as one unchanged unit, and the waist can stay attached to the torso if you're really careful. But I've yet to manage that, and it kind of feels more so than any of his other ilk that nothing's really transforming on him. The feet are going as far on the ankle tilt as they can, and that's the closest thing his body gets to changing shape. It just feels the most like Legos out of any of the weaponizers. You are absolutely just disassembling it and putting it back together differently. There is nothing satisfying about this process. The good news is, at the end of it all, you are getting a great little tank destroyer. And for those who don't know, yes, there are types of tanks that are actually built like this, where the turret can't rotate. This is done because without the rotating turret, you can mount a bigger gun and still leave the vehicle lighter since it won't have all the stuff built in that allows the gun to turn. And rotating the turret is actually of limited use in tank battles. The ability for the turret to turn is actually more for tanks to effectively be capable of fighting infantry, since other tanks mostly aren't going to be sneaking up on you from out of spider traps and balcony windows. Sorry for the history lesson, I just really don't know what more to say about this alternate mode. It's exactly what it should be. It's a little brick of a thing. I think the color is off. From what I remember, Slammer is supposed to be tan, not gray, white, and black. The turret has elevation, not really depressed though. The gun is mounted about as low as it can be in the chassis already. You can kind of fake it, but moving the turret at all is an exercise in frustration, because as stated before, the tolerances on this aren't great, and touching the cannon is the fastest way to start making this guy fall apart. This does not roll well. The front tires seem to do their jobs just fine, but the rear caster thing, whose only job is to roll, is great at getting stuck, and at its best, it's rough. They built a separate part to serve this function alone, and it's the part holding back its own functionality. These pegs are kind of needlessly in the way of a ton on this figure, and before you ask, yes, it can pull a Scourge. Also, one thing I haven't appreciated yet, because it's very subtle, is there is a ton of paint on this guy. It doesn't really stand out because it's all black, gray, and silver. But look at the black highlights? These are too thick to be called panel lines, so what do I call them? The whole rear is bathed in black, tread section gets a ton of silver. None of it looks impressive just because of the colors, but there's plenty here. So this is a decent little tank mode. It's mostly a brick, but that's what a tank like this is like. It looks cohesive, and it's a solid size. And in general, this is a mixed to good figure. Robot mode looks decent, it has its problems, but it works. Posing is great, weaponizing could have been fantastic, even possibly the best of its group, but because of baffling decisions, it wound up so flawed. I don't know how they didn't just include flip-out pegs instead of just relying on adapters to do all the heavy lifting. Transformation is kind of a dead spot. It's not worth hating, but there's also nothing to enjoy in doing it. And the alt mode is, as I said, a decent one. If you are all about the weaponizers, this is a solid one to get. If you want to reunite a Metroplex you already have with his little buddy, it is worth it for that. If you are on the fence about weaponizers, this probably won't turn you around. But it probably won't tip you over into hating them either. And if you still got no love to spare for the weaponizers, this is an easy pass. I was actually going to be more positive in this video before I sat down to write it when all of its little frustrations really managed to become clear. Calling it a slammer wasn't supposed to be ironic or a joke, it was just what my first impressions had me thinking. But with the build issues and with the difficulty of using him as intended, I gotta revise my stance. Though if you want a chainsaw for all your demon slaying needs, then absolutely pick this guy up. No hesitation, 100 out of 10, best figure ever. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.